Welcome to Bounce Around Charleston. I'm Randolph Miller. Coming up in today's show, Damon Fordham, author of True Stories of Black South Carolina and Voices of Black South Carolina, two books that highlight lesser-known aspects of black history in South Carolina. There will be a talk and book signing. He'll be here to tell us more about it. And Bounce reporter Michelle Lemon talks to the owners of Charleston Gourmet Burger about how they got started in the business. Zenobia from Zenobia Sweet Tooth will be here to show us some of her delicious treats. And closing out the show, music from Pastor Henry Dixon. Okay, we're here on Bounce Around Charleston, and standing here with me, Damon Fordham.
Pleasure to see you, sir.
Thank you for being here today with us on Bounce Around Charleston. Great writer, author, and there's a wonderful book signing coming up. Tell us about it.
Yes, it's going to be at the Old Slave Mart Museum, which is on number 6 Chalmers Street, downtown Charleston, right before you get to Broad Street. Okay. And it will be on January the 21st, Wednesday at 6 p.m.
And these are two books that you wrote?
Yes, they are.
Entitled?
Okay, the first one is True Stories of Black South Carolina, and the other one is Voices of Black South Carolina. Okay, True Stories of Black South Carolina. So that means I'm going to hear stories about some real things that happened here in South Carolina with blacks. Very much so.
Stuff like what? Well,
for one thing, I'm going to talk a little bit about Samuel Smalls, who was the original individual that Porgy and Bess was based on. Back in 1924, he was a local street beggar who was in an altercation with his girlfriend Maggie Barnes. And there was a shooting that took place, and it was covered in the Charleston News and Courier. And Du Bois Hayward read about it the next day and wrote his novel Porgy, which later became Porgy and Bess.
So now, our young people need to know, when they hear this, that story is, he's a real character, a real person.
Very much so. And
he's buried where? I heard he's buried.
He's buried in James Island, next to the Presbyterian Church, as a matter of fact. He died shortly after he was released in jail in about 1924 or 25. Samuel
Porgy Smalls.
Yes, sir.
Okay, who else is in the book?
Well, another individual who I think is really worthy of mention is the fact that we had a black lieutenant governor, in fact, two, during Reconstruction. The first one was a man by the name of Alonzo Ranzier.
He's on the screen now, yes.
Who, as a matter of fact, his great-great-granddaughter is a librarian at Charleston Southern University.
Today?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
But he was governor from 1870 to 1872 and was very much voting in favor of legislation toward the education of the people.
Wow, Lieutenant Governor Alonzo Ranzier.
That's right.
Okay, and then Esau Jenkins?
Esau Jenkins was a local civil rights leader who was born in Johns Island, and he didn't finish the 3rd or 4th grade, but he went on to not only learn to read himself, but he taught others to read so that they could register and vote and take charge of their lives. And he formed several businesses here, including the C&O Credit Union and the Hotspot Record Shops, which are still in existence over 40 years after his death.
Wow, and he's known for civil rights and all that.
Very much so.
Okay.
Very much so. He was one of the associates of Dr. King, as a matter of fact, in Charleston. He was the head of the SCLC here in Charleston.
Wow. And that's in the book, The True Stories of Black South Carolina.
That's correct.
So when we read about the lives of these individuals, we will understand that these incidents were actual.
That is correct. That and a whole lot more, too.
And let's not forget about General.
Oh, Robert Smalls, yes.
Yes.
The great Robert Smalls not only was famous for leading his family and himself out of slavery aboard the Planter during the Civil War, but the reason why you had a black lieutenant governor in the first place was because you had the Reconstruction era in South Carolina, during which blacks could vote. And during that period, Robert Smalls advocated the foundation of what we now know today as the tax-funded public school system of South Carolina, so that people wouldn't have to come up illiterate as he did as a young man.
Well, you know, there was a school in Beaufort that was named for him. I attended that school. Yeah, Robert Smalls.
That is correct.
Okay, now what about the book Voices of Black South Carolina?
Well, these stories are handled in both books, as a matter of fact. The Ranzier and Smalls, the Robert Smalls stories are handled in Voices of Black South Carolina. The Samuel Smalls and Esau Jenkins stories, among many others, are handled in True Stories of Black South Carolina.
Okay, so when we go to these books, we're going to find these stories and many other stories.
That and many more that we don't have time to get into here.
Well, you know what? It's good to understand that these incidents were real and actual, and then our young people need to get these books because they need to understand what the history was all about.
Not only that, but they need to know more than, as Chris Rock said, that the fact that there was slavery and Martin Luther King. Yes, Martin Luther King was a great man, but you had many individuals that set the foundation for a Martin Luther King and a Barack Obama. They didn't just come out of nowhere.
Okay.
And in understanding that, they may be able to aspire to greatness themselves.
Okay, this wonderful book signing will be coming up real soon. My lecture and book signing of my books, The True Stories of Black South Carolina and The Voices of Black South Carolina, will be at the Old Slave Mart Museum at number 6 Chalmers Street, downtown Charleston, 6 p.m. Wednesday, January the 21st. 2015, or they can call you for more information at 843-958-6467 for more details. We want to thank you for being on Bounce Around Charleston.
And thank you for having me, Mr. Randolph.
And you've been a great writer for many, many, many years. We've read a lot of your writing, so we're going to come out and support the book signings, The True Stories of Black South Carolina and The Voices of Black South Carolina.
And bring your kids.
And bring your kids.